On today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, why are so many men going to see Barbie? Is this supposed to be a movie targeted at women? Also, as the strike continues to go on, there's some headlines and some major trades about SAG actors turning on each other. Billy D. Williams drops a hint that he is returning to Star Wars. We'll talk about that. And a bunch of outrage over some Barbenheimer memes going on online, and they're not understandable. That and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show podcast starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Not just giving you our opinions, but giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different from ours. I'm joined in studio today by the birthday boy, Ray. Happy birthday, Ray. We've been celebrating it all week. Oh, beside him is Jonathan Voico.
Hey, how are you
And sitting
guys?
beside him is Chris Carr.
Hi, guys.
Who brought in some delicious peanut butter brownies for Ray's birthday today.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I'm really sad because his present's not here, so I had to get other stuff too.
Aw, he doesn't need a present.
Yeah, I don't
Yes,
need a
he
present.
does,
I
because he's
just
the
need-
gift.
What? He's trying to think of something. He was about to say something that was going to come across the wrong way, and he decided
just
not to
was.
say it. I know that's what happened. But most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much.
Forgot we were air.
We're live. Thank you. And most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here, making the show part of your day. We're going to start off by talking about those topics that I listed off. And then later, we're going to take topics and questions from our YouTube channel members. For those of you who listen to our podcast, we also have a YouTube channel where we have a devoted, fantastic group of supporters known as our YouTube channel members. If you visit us over there, why don't you become one of our YouTube channel members? At any rate, every day we ask those members to give us some of their topics and questions, and we address those, at least as many as we can, near the end of the show. All right. With that all down, let's get started with this, shall we? You know, Barbie is clearly blowing up the box office. What it's doing right now is completely unprecedented. Of course, its second weekend just became like the biggest second weekend of the year. It would have been, as its second weekend, the seventh biggest opening weekend of the year. And by the way, it's also the seventh biggest second weekend in the history of Hollywood and the highest second weekend for a non-franchise film. All the other ones are either Star Wars, Marvel, or Jurassic Parks. So it's just, what it's doing is incredible. But what may surprise you is the number of men that are going to go see this. And that is the topic of today's Mint Mobile Hotline question of the day. If you guys have a question for our show and like to hear your voice either on our podcast or on one of our short YouTube videos, go ahead and call it in anytime at 951-268-4259. And again, today's question is about, why are there so many guys going to see Barbie? Check it out.
Hey, John and crew, Dad Jokes here. I recently read a statistic on the demographics of the audiences going to the Barbie movie. It was 59% female and 41% male. My question is does that sound like the right target? Should it have been more like 70-30 female to male, or does that kind of 60-40 sound right? I am curious on your thoughts and what the expectations were versus reality. Thank you, and bring on the filthy.
All right. Thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, it is crazy when you start looking at and breaking it down. Now, you would be forgiven if you never looked at any of these stats or anything, and somebody were to come up to you and ask you, hey, what percentage of this Barbie audience do you think is women? You'd be forgiven if you jump to a conclusion and say, oh, maybe 80%, maybe 75%. I mean, that'd be understandable that you'd say that, but it's 59% to 41%. It's actually not nearly as unbalanced as one might think. And that raises the question, well, why do you think so many men are going? Now, there's your standby answers, right? Well, husbands got to go with their wives. Sure, some of them, but that's no more than case than when a Marvel movie does well, saying, well, some girlfriends or wives just went along with their husbands. Sure, there's some of that. Absolutely there is. I can't deny that. But I'll just throw this out there too. When I first saw Barbie, it was me, Ray, and Ryan. It was just the three of us.
Guys night out, baby.
Dudes being dudes.
We just three dudes going to see Barbie.
Yep.
What's up?
I love it.
I mean, so there we were.
We all
went.
wore blue.
We all wore
dark blue to show our non-support.
We said we're here for the Ken movie.
Yeah, we're here for the dojo. What is it? Dojo Casa?
Mojo Dojo Casa House. We're here for Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa House. So, I mean, yeah, there's some of that. I get it. But here's the thing. What I don't think it's 59-41, but we'll just call it 60-40. What the 60-40 does not represent here is that 10% fewer men went to it than a normal movie. No. It's that 10% more women went out than they would normally go to see, because there is obviously a female emphasis on this movie. Yes. But because the lead character and protagonist of the film is a woman, and therefore as a woman dealing with some issues and matters that a woman might encounter and deal with in life, does not preclude it from having a universality to it that everybody can enjoy, any more than saying, well, the movie's called Iron Man, why are women going to see it? Because maybe women enjoy a fun, good, entertaining movie. Maybe that's it.
But there's no shopping in it.
Oh, wow.
Throw this scalding coffee in your face.
I thought only guys like that movie. I'm kidding,
I'm
of
so
course.
glad I'm not the one who said that.
Hey, it's purely a joke.
No shopping.
See you later, Jonathan.
I didn't realize I was going to get that kind of reaction. Now I kind of feel bad. I thought everyone was going to be like, well, that's stupid.
Can you teach me how to do the thing?
no
I'm
shot.
gonna need to know.
Okay. What was I saying? I don't even know what I was talking about. What are we here? What are we
Barbie,
doing?
men.
Oh,
Barbie,
yes,
men,
that's right.
Women be shopping.
Women be shopping. So, like, none of us ask, like, when, I don't know, when a Star Wars movie does well, not that that's happened in a while, but when a Star Wars movie does well, that they go, well, why did women go see it? Or if John Wick Chapter 4 does well, why did women? No, we don't ask that question, because we understand that even though the lead character is a guy, and as a guy, he will predominantly be dealing with some male issues, sure, but there's universality to these movies. There's something in there for everybody. And if the movie's good, why shouldn't women go see it? And if Barbie's good, why shouldn't men go to see it? And that's the bottom line here. Why are so many men going to go see Barbie? I mean, call me crazy, because it's a good movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people are enjoying it. And it's funny. And it's insightful. And it's deeper than one might think. And at the end of the day, that's why we go to movies. We don't go to movies to have echo chambers of, I want to see people who are just like me all the time, only time. No, we go to movies and we tell stories to imagine the way, the world is, but we also to imagine the way the world could be, what our dreams, thoughts, aspirations, imaginations can go run wild. And so why does that need to preclude one gender or the other from being able to go into a movie like Barbie, sit down and take away the entertainment value and the universality and the messages thereof away from it? Is Barbie targeted a little bit more towards women? Absolutely, of course it is. But Iron Man is targeted a little bit more towards guys. Maybe you could say the same about Rocky or something like that. But why did guys go see it? Yeah, there are some who are just going for their girlfriends and boyfriends, sure. But at the end of the day, it's a movie that the audiences are loving. Look at the audience. Look at the cinema score. The cinema score, no fake things there. Cinema score actually canvass people as they're coming out of the movie theater. Go look at the cinema score of Barbie. Go look at the verified audience score of Barbie on Rotten Tomatoes, which is Rotten Tomatoes verifies as those people actually bought tickets to see Barbie. Not just anonymous blowholes who just talk in there, Barbie sucks, you never saw the movie. Anyway, just go look at those. Look at the critic ratings and look at the box office. Anyway, Chris, somebody calls in and poses the question. It's an understandable question. It's like, because I will admit too, for me, when I heard that 41% of the audience was male, that was a little bit higher than I thought it would be. I mean, maybe it would be under that if me, Ray, and Ryan didn't go, but It was a little bit harder than
You
I
guys
thought.
pushed it over the edge.
That's
Those three dudes, they were like,
Right
man,
there.
that was so much, man.
I
The
know.
percentage
Why
went
do you
up.
think so much of the audience going to see Barbie are in fact men?
Well, I mean, to your point, first of all, storytelling isn't gendered. Good storytelling is good storytelling, point blank. That's why when certain things are like, oh, well, she does really good girl jokes, or, this is a man's kind of show. It's just like, shut up. Yeah. Living in that kind of binary has to be exhausting. To be like, I can only like this. If we are to look at things, though, Liz Plank, who was the feminist they featured on Welcome to Wrexham, who talked about, why sport can be such a great thing for men to emotionally connect through. She's been posting some really amazing things about the Barbie movie, talking about how, hey, these people who are talking about how this is an anti-men movie, it's not. It's just going, hey, let's look at what the patriarchy is like, but make it with all women and see how you feel about those roles being reversed. Probably not awesome, because equality is the true goal of feminism, right? And a lot of the movie talks about how hard it is to be Ken when you have to live up to this certain expectation of being a certain type of masculine, a certain type of guy, the expectations that are placed upon you. The guide to be is an Alan. There's no other Alan. Alan gets to exist as his own thing, who gets to be, fight for what he believes in and do what he wants and isn't dependent on another person for his identity. That's what everyone wants, is to stand on their own 2 feet. And I think the movie talks about that a lot. And that's what a lot of Ken's exploration here is who am I without my partner? Right. And I think that's a bigger lesson. And I think it's a safe space for people to explore that kind of existential dread of, oh my gosh, yeah, what is my purpose in life? What am I like? And also, I just find it borderline offensive whenever people have this idea of, well, men got dragged to this because of their wives or girlfriends. You all have agency. I feel like the same thing doesn't happen with women of like, why did so many women see it? Then there's always some talk about like, well, the hunky guy's in or this kind of thing. Whereas men are dragged to a movie with this 90s trope of women telling them they need to do this or they're going to have a rough night at home and sleep on the couch. I'm over it. It's a fun movie. That's ultimately why people are seeing it.
Getting back to your thing too about there's this narrative going around out there, obviously being pushed by people who haven't seen the movie, that the movie is about attacking men. I like to come back to this. There is a key pivotal moment, and it's hinted at in one of the trailers in the movie where America Ferrera, the big major scene of the movie is America Ferrera talking to Barbie, who's having a bit of an emotional breakdown, and she gives her this speech about all the obstacles and difficulties it is and the hardships to be a woman. And she goes on this long speech and running down all these things about these inherent contradictions and all this kind of stuff, challenge to be a woman. But the really interesting thing for anybody who paid attention, as she's running down all this big laundry list of things, she's not blaming men. That's the key. In this big laundry list of things, there are some things that are caused by men. A lot of the things on her list are caused by other women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the other things are caused by the society that we ourselves built. And what I said in this one Barbie video, I said, essentially America Ferrera is saying, nobody is to blame because everybody is to blame. That essentially is the message of Barbie. Barbie, when they talk about the hardships that women have, what Greta Gerwig has done so masterfully is told this in a very funny, engaging, philosophical way. But at the bottom line, she's just saying, hey, listen, as a woman, she would say, here's all the challenges we face. And it's because, some of it because of men. A lot of it is because of other women. And a lot of it is because of the society we've built. It's just way smarter. It is the dumb approach to just go, oh, they're blaming men. Well, then you either clearly didn't watch the movie or you just went into it with the message you wanted it to say or something like that.
Well, a woman was irritated and mad. Therefore, this is against men.
Yeah.
Because if you have that fragile of a footing on your manhood that because a woman is upset about something that your manhood is now threatened and it's her fault and they hate men, the problem lies with you, sir, not...
There's a scene in the movie, again, it's in one of the trailers, where Barbie and Ken in the real world approach some construction workers and they catcall her a bit and say some things. And I read one guy, they're just saying that all men are blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, I know you probably have never worked a day of physical labor in your life. I grew up in a construction family. I worked road construction. That is exactly fucking what happened every fucking day. Every day that a really good looking woman would walk by there. Now, granted, these guys in the ditches, they thought they were being flattering. Like, I mean, there's this detached part of their brains that thought they were being complimentary. So whatever. But I mean, that happened every day. And the fact that they would have the audacity to put something that literally happens every day in a movie, I think says something more about your own personal insecurity than it does about anything else. But whatever. That's just me. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this. Talking about things that happen every day. People not getting along with each other.
What? Since when?
Since when? There's a strike going on. Actually, a couple strikes going on at the moment that has brought the entertainment industry to a grinding halt for the most part. As the WGA went on strike we're at 3 months ago now. Mm-hmm. And the actor strike, which has now been on strike for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I just noticed this like image because we've seen it before, and I'm like, look how weathered and beaten the writer's one is and how fresh the actor one is.
You can tell it's been on strike longer. And look at that. No trees to give them shade.
Nope.
Sorry, this is at Paramount. So whenever you have any type of collective bargaining, whether you're the AMPTP or whether you are the WGA or whether you are SAG or any other industry, inside, outside of the entertainment industry, IATSE, Teamsters, whatever, your inherent bargaining power comes from your unity, right? It's implied in the term union, unity. We are united. And right now, and you know, Chris, to your point, you've kind of alluded to this a lot over the weeks that, you know, when even prior to the actor strike, we talk about how, you know, it's like, really, that's your president or whatever else. You've mentioned, you've given me some education on this about how there's not a ton of unity at times within SAG. Mm-hmm. I mean, hell, you guys couldn't even get out more than 50% of your own membership to vote on the strike authorization.
Much like American politics in general.
Much like American
It's
politics.
hard to get people to show up to vote, but those who did, right? We got that astounding 98% of people who did vote were in favor of the strike.
So the strike is now going on. And I've been very clear about this, so I'll just say this again off the top so you understand the context of what I'm saying, is that aside from the issue of residuals, which I am still kind of nebulous about, I'm still not really quite sure how I feel about the issue of residuals in general, but on every other issue that has been brought forth by either SAG or the WGA, I am completely in support, not of SAG or the WGA, but the positions that they are taking. I believe they're absolutely right in just about everything they're asking for. That being said, some interesting headlines have been popping up in the last couple of days here on Yahoo Entertainment. You know, things like actors are turning on each other, SAG-AFTRA strike rules get blurry, stuff like that. There have been a couple of situations that have happened recently involving Arrow star Stephen Amell, including Brad Pitt. And here's where I get a little iffy about the unity of SAG. So, and we did a short video of this on the YouTube channel earlier, and I'm really glad Chris is here now. So I'm just going to kind of reiterate some of the things I said then, and then I want to hear what Chris is saying on this. Because for those of you who don't know, Chris, you're new here, Chris is a member of SAG.
Yeah.
She is currently one of the members on strike. So, Stephen Amell was at some kind of convention, GalaxyCon or something like that. Which, yes, he was allowed to be at because there are a certain set of rules that are laid out by the union about these types of events that actors can go to. This fell under that, so he was allowed to be there. Somebody in the audience asked him about the strike, and he basically said he didn't agree with the strike. Now, he also said he supported his union. To me, anybody who has a sibling gets this. You know, I don't like what my brother just did, but I've got my brother's back. I don't agree with my brother, but if you come at my brother, you're going to have to go through me. You know, that sort of thing. So Stephen said, look, I support my union. I don't agree with the strike. Some of his own castmates like putting up tweets saying this fucking guy and giving double F'ers and stuff like that. And it's just been kind of eviscerated by other members of his own thing. He didn't break any rules. He didn't do anything according to the guidelines and everything of the union. He didn't do anything wrong. Brad Pitt has a Formula One movie, I believe it's called Apex, that's in production. So without actors and stuff like that, they decided there are scenes and B-roll footage of racing that they have with car drivers that they can still shoot. All completely falls within the guidelines of what the SAG rules, the union rules are. Brad Pitt himself was not on set. Brad Pitt himself did not go on camera. No SAG actors went on camera. It was basically, as Jonathan pointed out to me, it was basically B-roll because they figured, hey, if the strike's going on, let's at least get as much done as we can. But a number of SAG actors started to attack Brad Pitt, calling him a scab, even though what he was doing was within the rules and the guidelines of the union. The union said this is okay. He did it and then had members of his own union attacking him. We've talked a lot on this show about the SAG waivers. There are certain movie projects that are being produced by smaller studios that are not signatories of the AMPTP, and that is who SAG and the WGA are striking against. They're not striking against Hollywood. They're striking against a specific and large group called the AMPTP. Disney, Warner Brothers, Netflix, CBS, ABC, NBC, all that kind of stuff, right? Some studios like A24 are not members of the AMPTP, and SAG has some guidelines and rules that says, hey, if you're not a member of the AMPTP and your productions, you're a smaller production company, your productions will follow these rules, you have SAG's blessing to continue on with production and you can put SAG actors in it. So following those rules, some people have done that, but some other members of SAG have been critical of, calling it, Sarah Silverman called it bullshit. Been critical of those actors going and being in those things that the union itself said was okay to do. The question that this brings up for me is, what's the point of having rules if you don't care about your rules? I mean, obviously and rightfully so, if one of your actors goes on to set of an NBC show and starts acting, they are breaking the rules and action should be taken. But if you're going to do that, then I think you have to fully embrace that if your SAG actors, if your fellow union members are staying within the rules of what the union says is acceptable and is not, you should not be critical of your own fellow members. Have those debates after the strike is done. You want to debate about the merits of the waiver system? Good debate to have. Have it after the strike is done. You want to talk about the merits about whether any production should be allowed to continue even if it's outside of the parameters of the union? Good debate to have. Have the debate after the thing is done. You got a lot of people just trying to do things that are following the rules and being attacked for following the rules. And I just don't think that is a smart approach, because I'll tell you what, who's loving this? AMPTP.
Yep.
They're sitting back in their freaking penthouses looking down with the stogies in their mouth going, ha, 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 ha.
It's like Mr.
They're
Burns,
laughing at, guys, listen.
Excellent.
My SAG friends, listen to me. You're being laughed at right now. Get your house in order. Get your shit together. Get a deal done. Get something great, and then worry about those issues. Figure it out later. So next time, heaven forbid, another strike has to happen in 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21 years from now, then you got your rules. Now is not the time to be arguing amongst yourselves publicly on your social fucking medias. People got to stay off their social fucking medias. On your social media and in your interviews and stuff like that. This is not the forum to do it, and this is not the time to do it, because you're being laughed at and it makes it look like your position is weakened. So that's part of the reason why you don't hear anybody from the AMPTP ever saying anything. The only thing you'll hear somebody from the AMPT saying is what was Stavros said. We are committed to getting a deal done. What did Iger say? I think some of the things SAG's asked for is a little unrealistic. That's the extent of anything you're going to hear them say. Why? Because you should shut up and behind the scenes get a deal done and not be attacking your own members, even for some legitimate issues. I just think if they're staying within the rules, take it, file it away, and address it later. If they're breaking the rules, address it now, address it harshly. But I don't know, Chris, I say all that, and it's all well and good for me Joe fucking nobody on the outside who is not in the union, who is not all that. That's easy for me to say as somebody on the outside who this doesn't directly affect. You are on the inside. You've actually been on the nominating committee of SAG. You are an actual person on strike. By the way, completely following the rules of the union, being allowed to be on a show like this.
I emailed and called, so paranoid. I had a long talk with Amy last night too about what I'm allowed to do and not do too, like even on social media or podcasts or things, because it's confusing.
Right.
It really
so
is.
I want you to be careful. I don't want to put you terribly on the spot. I don't want you to say anything you shouldn't be in a position to say. But allow me to take the liberty to ask the question, deflect and defer where you need to.
Sure.
As a member of SAG, right now, and bring up the screenshot again, Jonathan. Right now, instead of headlines being, negotiations are fierce, SAG again reiterates fairness, pay a livable wage as well. Headlines are actors turning on each other, Brad Pitt being called a scab, this guy's an asshole because he said he didn't like the strike, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, like as a member of SAG, if you had SAG's ear right now, what would your message to your union be?
Oh, it's to stop the infighting. And I've had the privilege through my own studio, Speak Friend, through EEB Studio, some others, to talk to other actors who are earlier in their actor journey about the ins and outs of this strike. And solidarity is the big thing here. And I've talked so many times on this show about our union isn't perfect. There are definitely problems. There are a lot of things that we have to address after we handle the AMPTP. After that happens, because this is what they want. They want the infighting. And to your point about all these headlines right now, Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, those are all owned by a company called Penske Media, which also owns Dick Clark Productions, which is a member of the AMPTP. So I know that sounds very tinfoil hat, you guys, but truly, the media is loving this because we're just feeding them all this fuel to talk about how unsuccessful this strike is going to be. There's all this infighting. Actors can't agree. Now, can SAG be doing a better job communicating? Absolutely. They gave us an email on the interim agreements about 2 or 3 days ago, and they really should have done that the minute those agreements started happening. We should have had that information. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, though, right? They definitely could have had better communication strategies here. Actors like Stephen Amell, I would like to just say, it is easier to talk about how you think something like striking is myopic, which I think is a very poor choice of words. Strikes aren't about immediate results. It's not nearsighted. It's thinking through, watching that end game. It's easy to have that kind of point of view when the show you were on for almost 9 years was all on television and your residuals were still what they should be. Streaming, obviously, he hasn't gotten those things and he should be upset about those, but he was also on a cable network show, so he was making money. I think he's also frustrated because he can't promote the show he's currently on that premiered this week. That's gotta suck. That's really a big bummer. But when it comes to all of this infighting, and I'm all here for asking questions, and Sarah Silverman's post at least was, hey, SAG, make it make sense. I know I'm not understanding this. Well, still heated because she has been turning down work. Viola Davis, she said she just didn't feel comfortable working despite the agreement because so many people were striking.
Which is totally her purview to do.
She can totally do that. While Brad Pitt can absolutely go work on something if it's adhering to all of the rules. This idea of everyone calling each other scabs, for even the littlest things, I've seen people on socials coming after each other for posting their pictures of going to see Barbie and being like, solidarity much?
Yeah, you were pointing that out to me.
Yeah. That kind of stuff is so not helpful. That's myopic. That's ridiculous. Strikes work. They do. At least they have for the entertainment industry. And once again, when we came together, this is the second time that writers and actors have struck and stood in solidarity together. The last time we did this, we got residuals. This is a long game thing, and we need to focus on the actual, I know this sounds dramatic, but the actual enemy right now. And that's the person or the group that's not negotiating with us. We all just need to come together, and then we need to come to the table with them and figure some stuff out, but this is not helping.
Yeah, I wish I would have, the response I would have liked to have seen from some people, like with Stephen Amell's post when he said, hey, I support my union, but I don't agree with the strike. What I would have liked to have seen, instead of the one actor on Arrow who just tweeted double fingers and whatever. What I would have loved to have seen is saying, hey, you know, I disagree with Stephen on this issue, and I really look forward to being able to sit down and go over the issues of the merits of striking with him.
Exactly.
Like, something like that could have diffused it immediately. No headlines, no whatever. The Brad Pitt thing is also one that really...
Yeah.
Because you got a guy who is struggling to stay within the rules and then still got kind of lambasted for it.
And I think people are reacting to because it's Brad Pitt. You know, it's one of the A-listers who obviously has multiple homes and is doing quite well and has these other things.
No, but think about his crew that now they're struggling to find work. They found a way of like, well, we can shoot B-roll, we can shoot stuff that's within the guidelines. And then because people got in a tiff about it, they're like, well, I guess I don't get paid for the next, we had to shut down because they got angry.
A movie is not one actor. It is thousands of other cast and crew members. It's so many other people. This is also why I understand I get emotional about this stuff. It affects so many people we all know personally. It affects all of us in this room. People in LA and New York, I feel like, have a different intensity about it than other markets just because it affects every aspect of the cities we live in, basically. But one, we need to stop being so emotional in these negotiations and in these things that we see, because then we have these knee-jerk reactions where then once we kind of cool it a little bit, we can go, oh, maybe that wasn't my best tactic. Because the best way to understand somebody is to go into a discussion with them hoping to understand them, being open to understanding them. And a great way to go around that too is to actually do the work yourself. Read up on the interim agreements, see what they actually mean. I just shared this story in my stories. Bob Bergen did a great little piece. He's the voice of Porky Pig, for those of you who don't know, of just, guys, actually read what we're doing. Actually read the interim agreements and then make your own opinions. Then do that. But don't just have these kind of viral social media reactions to things, because that's not going to get the baby bathed, you know?
It's a great point. And the one other thing I think we should point out here too is we got to remember that all these members of SAG and the WG for that matter are human beings.
Yeah.
And when we as human beings are hurt, and I'm not talking about my feelings are hurt, when we are hurt, sometimes we lash out a little bit more. Look, the reality is I remember when Erin, we hadn't told the world yet, but Erin had landed a role in the Will Smith, Serena and what was the name of the movie again? King Richard.
Yes.
She had landed a role in King Richard. And like 2 days before she went in to start shooting, COVID shut it down. Now that was COVID, not a strike, right? And I can only imagine now, thankfully, year and a half, 2 years later, she was able to go back and actually film her scenes in that and be in the movie and all. Yeah. But at the time, like that would have been like you had this role, you had a job lined up, blah, blah, and it was taken away. Everybody's got to keep in mind too that a lot of these actors were either about to start working or were in the midst of working or haven't had a job for a bit, and now it's going to be even longer until they get a job. They have bills to pay, whatever. And I think when we as human beings are actually tangibly hurting, we are more likely to lash out. I think that's human. Yeah. I think that, and that's something we got to keep in mind. Like I'm saying, I would have rather seen the response to say Stephen Amell saying, hey, you know, I disagree with Stephen, but I look forward to sitting down and talking with him about the merits of striking. It's understandable. It sounds like, I've been out of work for a few weeks now. I don't know when I'm going to be able to go back to work. I got bills to pay, and he's out there saying this. Exactly. So it's a little bit more understandable.
It makes sense. Hindsight's 20/20, and we're all going to be emotional. I remember when we first were striking, I came in here and told you guys I finally had traction with one of these companies. I had a huge audition that was due the day before the strike decision with and we'll do callbacks in August. And
2025.
Yeah. And it was this is what has to happen, but man, what a shitty time.
Yeah. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to take a moment here and thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. They are my mobile service provider. They should be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this. In the world of Star Wars, everybody knows that the biggest question that came into people's minds when the prequels came out was, where's Lando? Billy D. Williams, ladies and gentlemen, the great Lando Calrissian and the most recognizable face to be associated with Colt 45, Billy D. Williams, who of course gave his blessing, sat down, met with a number of times with Donald Glover about him taking over the role of Lando, gave his blessing to it, the whole bit. Well, he just said something interesting, and I don't think it's difficult for us to connect dots. Now, granted, we as film fans can be a little bit, to put it kindly, psychotic when it comes to connecting dots. We've all done it. Nobody deny it. We've all done it.
I've never done it.
As a matter of fact, just recently, as a little bit of a side note, Zack Snyder put up on his social media, looking forward to taking my kids to go see Blue Beetle, #representation matters, right? Put that out.
Oh, you know what that means.
A couple, yeah, you know exactly what it means.
It just dawned on me.
A couple of Gus's gas station movie review.fart kind of outlets ran headlines confirmed Zack Snyder returning to do Justice League 2 and 3. Why? Because he said something
They know the business, man.
that was kind of supportive of Blue Beetle.
They know
Because
how
he said
Hollywood
that,
works.
Because listen, as much as me too, I made the face. I mean, what?
My
What?
brain hurts
What's
so
that
much
Jackie
right now.
Chan meme? That Jackie Chan meme with his face is like,
I'm just,
"Whoa."
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the face. But for all of us who made or are making that face right now, come on. We've all kind of done it as a movie fan from time to time.
But that is a
Well,
deep cut.
yeah.
Maybe this is a little bit of those connecting the dots, but I don't actually think this is a stretch because Billy D. Williams just put out this message where he said this: I am thrilled to share that something truly magnificent is coming soon. This is a dream come true for me, so make sure to enable notifications for stories and posts to stay in the loop. You don't want to miss this. May the force be with you all. Okay,
Maybe he's voicing an animated series or something, though.
here's the thing. It was just last week
Yes.
that news broke that not only is that long gestating Lando series actually still in the making, Donald Glover, Emmy Award winner, 3-time writing Emmy Award,
Three times.
Tom.
has actually signed on to write the Lando series with his brother. So, okay, that just came out last week. So now a few days later, Billy D. Williams, who has always talked about his love for this character, says, I'm about to announce something that's thrilling. It's coming soon. It's a dream come true for me. And he ends it off with, may the force be with you all. Is it that big of a jump to say Billy D's going to be involved with this Lando series? I mean, come on. It's not completely tinfoil hattish.
I mean,
of
he
us,
does end all of his letters and correspondence with that, though, to be fair. May the force.
including the ones he writes to his
Yeah,
kids.
even to his accountant, everything.
I mean,
Right.
it's
For
a,
those of you who
So-
missed it, Jonathan's being facetious.
Yeah, I'm being facetious. and also I'm just thinking what I'm thinking is flashbacks. So maybe they're writing it where it's Lando's his age now, thinking about, you know what I mean?
it's going to
So a
be
little
like
bit
How
of-
I Met Your Mother with
and
that
young Indiana
stormtrooper girl.
Jones,
Or young Indiana Jones, yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
bit of young Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Gather around, children, as I tell you the tale about how I first came across the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
It was 65 years ago. And then you flash, something along those lines, right? Now, again, we don't know, but I don't think you need to be a psychic to put these ones together. I don't know, Ray.
No, I'm just saying. I went back to the Justice League Zack Snyder story on IMDb. It appears that the stories are true. there's a Justice League Part 2 coming out in development in IMDb because of that news.
Is that actually an IMDb?
Yeah.
This is a great lesson. This is why, guys, I've said this a million times.
Ridiculous.
In development.
IMDb is fabulous and rock solid for all movies that have come and gone.
Yeah.
And been in theaters, 100% rock solid. You should never take seriously, not that it's always wrong, not at all, but you should never take seriously anything it talks about upcoming things, because anybody can go in there and add shit.
It's movie Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
You can just go in there, yeah.
Yeah, so don't pay attention to that. But this, look, Chris, am I crazy? I have it pretty much settled, and I don't know, it's possible he's talking about something else, but in my head it's settled. He's talking about this Lando series. I don't think it's a coincidence that Donald Glover's news just came out a few days ago. Now he's saying this. He ends it with "The Force be with you."
Yeah.
Or maybe he's doing the voice of an animated Lando. I don't know, but I think it's exactly what you guys were just describing. I think this is a older Lando telling the tales of younger Lando. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I think so. I mean, to quote Luther, making a bit of a leap, but it's a small leap.
Right.
It's very feasible for him to be in any Star Wars property, whether it be animated, the new Lando project, etc. If they actually are moving forward with any Daisy Ridley stuff, he could still be around. I don't know. Tons of things could still happen. Lando Calrissian is an iconic character, so why wouldn't we bring Billy D into the mix for anything that's happening? And there's a lot of different ways that can happen. I'd love to see it. I love him.
For all we know, Donald Glover is like, he gave me his blessings, and I want to include him on this. And they wrote him in.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
100%. Like Donald Glover's told stories before. Like after he said he's always kind of revered him, but he said after he met with him, Donald Glover's talked about the fact that he's kind of become a hero of mine. And so it's really not that big of a jump or that big of a leap. And if you want to manifest Lando, who else do you want to have around more than anybody else than the guy who actually made Lando a real thing and gave him his heart, soul, and personality?
If he didn't end the sentence this way, I would hope that it was something of continuing on in Batman. I'm always still heartbroken.
Coming back as Commissioner Gordon?
Yeah,
No,
he was Harvey Dent, and I'm a bit heartbroken that we never saw any of that come to fruition.
Wait a second, he was?
Yeah, in Tim Burton's Batman, he was Harvey Dent.
In the first Batman.
Very small role.
Because, I'm just saying, if we got our live-action Batman Beyond movie with Michael Keaton, I think it'd be really fun to see an aged Harvey Dent.
That sounds amazing.
Right?
That sounds amazing.
Now, by the way,
David Zaslav, you need help, call me.
One of my favorite things of Billy Dean Williams in recent years, he did a guest episode playing himself on Modern Family. He did an episode where they ran into him in a hotel they had to hold up in, and they end up playing all night. It's just really great. Billy Dean.
Was he a jerk?
No.
Oh, okay. He
was Billy D. Yeah. By the way, if you want to watch some great Billy D, we did it in the studio the other day. Yeah, there's a great Jonathan quick on the screenshots. Go and check out on YouTube Tim Meadows imitating Billy D. Williams on Saturday Night Live.
Became increasingly clear.
As the movie, about halfway through the movie, I thought it's becoming increasingly clear that I am not in this movie. He's so good. He's so good at it. Anyway, okay. With that down, let's get on to something a little bit more serious here. So Barbenheimer is like the most dominant thing in the world of film and movies. It has collectively, after 10 days of both of them being in movie theaters, they collectively made over $1.1 billion, close to $1.2 billion between the two of them. Oppenheimer with an insane $400 million in just his first 10 days. Barbie with an even more insane $774 million in his first 10 days. The whole movement has been an insane success, right? For both films. And of course, the audience, the fans have had a lot of fun with the whole Barbenheimer sort of thing. To the point that Warner Brothers even did what a lot of studios will do. You know, throw a little support behind fans getting excited about their projects. Take a look at one or two of these. So here's one meme. Oh, you got it there, Jonathan?
Here.
There we go. Here's one meme that somebody made. And that, of course, this Warner Brothers didn't make this meme, but Warner Brothers, their official Barbie movie Twitter account, went onto it and said, "We're always thinking in pink." And then there was this one where, by the way, this is a real good piece of art. Somebody did a great job on that. And Barbie, retweeted it with the comment, "It's going to be a summer to remember," right? Fun, innocuous, innocent, whatever. Well, some people really took great offense to the whole Barbenheimer thing. Particularly took offense that Warner Brothers would be commenting on these things and reacting to these things. A particular from some Japanese fans. One of the reactions, here's just an example of one. "I absolutely cannot condone the act of jokingly spreading tweets that make fun of the atomic bombing that killed so many people in Japan. I strongly demand that related tweets be immediately retracted and deleted." Now, here's the interesting thing about that, is that while you had some individual fans in Japan that were really upset by it, their own, Warner Brothers' own Japanese offices made a reaction, put out a statement about that being retweeted. Listen to this. This comes from Deadline. The statement's posted on Japan's own Barbie account, where it has been liked 75,000 times, reads after translation, "We consider it extremely regrettable that the official account of the American headquarters of the movie Barbie," this is coming from the Japanese headquarters of Warner Brothers, "that the American headquarters for the movie Barbie reacted to the social media postings of Barbenheimer fans. We take this situation, I lost it. We take this situation very seriously. We are asking the U.S. headquarters to take appropriate action. We apologize to those who were offended by this series of inconsiderate reactions. Warner Brothers Japan." So Warner Brothers Japan goes out publicly to tongue lash the American headquarters about this thing. And then ultimately, Warner Brothers acquiesced. They said the following: Warner Brothers Japan has issued a statement. Oh, sorry, that was, this is the thing here. Warner Brothers has, the U.S. office, Warner Brothers U.S. has responded to the criticism that it received from its own studio branch in Japan and from many on social media over tweets of Barbenheimer memes featuring the atomic bomb images. The Warner Brothers Film Group sent us the following statement: Warner Brothers regrets its recent insensitive social media engagement. The studio offers a sincere apology. Okay. So this is one of those stories that we actually did a short video on the YouTube channel earlier today. And it's basically this. This is one of those situations where I truly do see where both sides are coming from. Because first and foremost, let's get this straight. Nobody was making fun of Japan being bombed. I don't think one person who made those memes was thinking, "Ha ha, Japan got atomic bombed," and decided to make fun of that. I don't think Warner Brothers in any reality was thinking, "Ha, this is great. Let's make fun of those Japanese people who got atomic bombed." That was not a part of the motivation, intention of anybody engaging in this. This was people taking elements of the posters of two celebrated movies, putting them together, and this Oppenheimer. And it should be noted, because this is not an insignificant fact, the explosion we see in these Oppenheimer images are not of Japan getting bombed. Christopher Nolan made a public statement saying he didn't put the bombing of Japan in the movie. He didn't have it in the movie at all. The explosion in question that you see in imagery is of the test detonation they did on American soil. Now, to some, that might seem like an insignificant point. I don't think it is. I think that's a very relevant thing. It's not like they did a scene in Oppenheimer where they bombed Japan and then put the bombing of Japan in the poster. That's not what this is. But before you rush too quickly to go, "Oh, those Japanese people just need to have a sense of humor." Look, I mentioned this before. I'm an Italian Canadian living in America. I ain't never had anybody drop an atomic bomb in where I called home. So unless you are, you don't get a say about whether or not somebody should feel offended by it. Again, do I think there is anything wrong with people who made those memes? Absolutely not. I don't. Do I think there was anything wrong with Warner Brothers engaging with their fans that had made some fun art that was just a collection of the poster art of different movies? I don't think there was any ill intent, and I don't think there's anything wrong that they did it. But I also don't feel like we should be in a position to rebuke anybody, particularly anybody who's living in Japan, saying that's kind of hurtful. Clearly, nobody intended that, but I don't blame them for feeling that way. I don't know. So I'm kind of in that position where, look, I think it would have been perfectly fine if Warner Brothers kept their tweets up. I think it's perfect. It's commendable and respectable that they decided, hey, if you feel like your feelings are getting hurt by this, we're going to take it down. I get it. It is a nifty issue. We're not talking about making fun of people's fashion choices. We're talking about one of the darkest moments in human history, right? That, the actual human beings dropping an atomic bomb on other human beings. The movie can help you understand the motivations behind it, sure. But even with the right motivations, it's one of the darkest moments in human history. And the people who are on the receiving end of it feeling kind of targeted by that a bit, I can't blame them. I don't know, Chris, you saw this. Listen, there are a lot of issues that come up in the world of film that one side is clearly just either being really ignorant or one side might be just being really oversensitive. For me, this is one where I don't think either applies personally, but I don't know. How do you see it?
I can absolutely see both sides of this. Clearly, what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima is devastating, and they still feel the effects of that to this day. I remember as a kid reading, I believe it's Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes. And that was a story set in 1977 where people were still getting diagnosed with leukemia and things because of all the radiation from there. It is never, and we've talked about this before, it's never our job to tell somebody that they should or shouldn't be offended by something. I can have an opinion on that. You can have an opinion on that. But I'm not going to go around policing how people should feel about things outside of being hateful and violent towards one another and causing harm. I do think these memes were meant to be harmless, but absolutely I understand why people would take great offense to them too. I can completely see that. I do want to speak to as well, Nolan said himself, part of not showing the actual bomb going off in the film was because of, at the time, it was Oppenheimer learned about it over the radio. Everyone here learned about it over the radio. And you felt so far removed from that thing happening. It was so far away. How could it affect you? And I think that's a big thing they did on purpose in that film of no one even thought about the greater ramifications here, really. It was just who can win, who can do this fastest. And then we lived in an entirely different world after that decision.
Yeah.
And notably and understandably, this film is not going to be shown in Japan. I completely understand why. But I think that's also something that when you see Oppenheimer is part of the greater discussion of it, of what is the true cost of war? What is the true cost of scientific advancements at the cost of other people's lives? And
which are questions that Oppenheimer asks himself in the movie. Yeah.
And it's something that I think that's a movie where you leave and you have a very thought-provoking discussion with people. When we talked with my parents about, all the World War II kind of things because their parents fought in World War II. And it's a very different kind of viewpoint because they have these idolized views of their family members who were part of Pearl Harbor and things like that. So it's a very complicated issue, but I truly don't think anyone meant any malice by it. I know that I've enjoyed and loved these Oppenheimer memes. I was sharing them before.
It's more about how they're just so polar opposite.
Exactly.
And coming at the same time. It's like, how weird is this,
Yeah.
And merging the two movies. But yeah, it's also a bit of a nihilistic take, right? Because we're all under the barrel of nuclear war at any point between nations in this world now.
Who didn't walk out of Oppenheimer being keenly aware of that?
Because of the decisions made in the 40s and the 30s in developing these things. So
it's the kind of thing of, you wouldn't make light of Schindler's List, obviously, but if Schindler's List and Tootsie are showing at the same time in your theater, you're like, well, that's an odd pairing.
Yeah.
And that's more of the thing here is just, well, these two things aren't congruent, but that's very interesting. And at the end of the day, honestly, both ask you a lot of existential questions.
All right, guys. With that down, we are now going to move on and take questions from our YouTube channel members. Again, we have a wonderful group of supporters, and why don't you guys become a YouTube channel members? You get several benefits, including we have these channel member town hall meetings once in a while. We have an ad-free version of the John Campea Show video podcast that goes up just for our channel members. And little things like today, we take questions from our channel members on the main show every day. So for now, let's get over and start taking those questions. Chris, what do we got up first?
From Esteban Reyes. Happy birthday, Ray. You're the homie.
Yes, it is. We've been talking about it for all week. We officially celebrate on Saturday, but today, and actually we're going out for dinner tonight. We're going out for dinner. I don't know where we're going.
Don't know where either.
Anne just said you wanted dim sum.
Well, I did, but now, my stomach is forever changing its mind. So
You can go hit up Din Tai Fung.
You get to pick whatever you want to have for dinner. That's where we'll go. All right, what's next?
From Casa Larsa. Is Sony making more money than some streaming platforms since its focus is on theatrical and then digital rentals and sales?
Well, let's put it this way. Disney just lost $2 billion. Disney Plus just lost $2 billion in a quarter. In 1 quarter. So they're projected to lose $7 to $8 billion this year. You know how much Sony has lost on streaming this year? Nothing. Look, we talked about this coming out of CinemaCon too. Sony is like, in this growing Cold War in streaming wars, Sony's decided not to be one of the combatants. They decided to be the arms dealer. They're like, you know what? We're not going to have a streaming service. We're going to make the content that y'all are going to get into a bidding war for, and that we'll provide you with our content at a jacked up and heightened price.
Or in a nicer analogy, instead of being gold miners, they're selling the shovels and making a killing.
And that's actually pretty good. They're selling
done.
the shovels and making it for. You ever see that episode of Parks and Rec where the Doomsday Cult rented the park?
Yes!
They Gorg the Destroyer is coming, and Ron Swanson takes advantage of them every year because a part of this Doomsday Cult is on the evening of the world's destruction, they're supposed to play flutes and sing these songs. So Ron makes these tons of these wooden flutes and goes down and sells them for like $200 a piece or something like that. It's like, that's Ron Swanson is Sony. So yeah, Sony's probably making out okay right now.
I signed up for a trial for Crunchyroll, the anime.
Is Sony still on that?
And so that's what I found out. Oh, Sony's behind that. It's just there was a free
Or
trial.
did they sell it? I can't remember.
No,
I thought they sold it.
I thought they sold it
And
too.
then they had Crackle too.
Crackle was a thing for a while. I don't know if
it was a free service. Maybe they were testing the waters.
Or maybe it was one of those videos. By the way, these fast channels like Pluto TV and a fast channel, FAST stands for free advertised supported television. I think that's what it is. So like Pluto, you can get Pluto for free. It's a free app. And Pluto has like 100 channels on it. And you can just watch, and it's just ad supported, right? And they are growing a lot. We've had
almost
some
like television.
inquiries about, I have considered
crazy.
selling the John Campea Show to a fast channel before and taking it like, there was actually one point about a year or so ago that I considered taking the John Campea Show off YouTube entirely because there was a fast channel that was kind of interested in just having it exclusive. Or we didn't do it, but that stuff was taken off.
I mean, you sign on to the Samsung TV Plus, this
no YouTube
Pluto
comment.
TV. Any of the ones on this TV right
they're
now,
always sending
they're
us.
all on Unsolved Mysteries channel.
They have like 8 unsolved mystery channels. They have like 3 poker channels.
There's a lot of mysteries to be solved, you guys.
Yep, there's like drive-in theater channels. There's like all it's. And listen, actually, guys, if you guys
Wait,
have ever tried Pluto,
explain a drive-in theater channel.
that's just the name of it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like they
I was
show,
I'm sorry,
they show,
what?
they show old movies all the
I
time.
just imagine it was somebody with their camcorder being like,
Sitting
all
in a
right.
drive-in
Like
movie
Mystery
theater.
Science Theater.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Oh, and Sony still does own Crunchyroll.
So they
Okay.
do. Maybe
Yes.
maybe the sale was the sale to Sony that I was thinking of.
I think so, because what I could see is it's still been owned since 2011,
Oh,
something like
I
that.
wonder what I was thinking of then. Okay, what's next?
Ulatan. I'm late to the party, but I finally watched Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
Yeah.
I loved it. It felt like a love letter for kids who grew up on Generation 1 and grew into 90s New York hip hop. P.S. Happy birthday, Ray!
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, listen, that movie was pretty good.
It was.
It wasn't as good as Bumblebee. I didn't love it, but I had a fun time. It was a fun movie. It's certainly better than. Yeah, I'll say it was better than anything Michael Bay made.
I won't forget it. It's the first time I sat in a Cinemark theater.
Oh, that's right. That was the movie you went to
The
go see at
best night
Cinemark.
ever.
That was such a good night. We got to go to more. All right, what's next?
From King Daddy Goat. Hey guys, hope all is well. I randomly noticed how your show doesn't have internet issues anymore. Did you guys change services? I know it's random, but it's been heavy on my mind. Thanks, guys, and bring on the filthy.
Yeah, I'm just cranking the internet wheel a little harder. I'm just working a little harder.
Say,
Well, that's because the John Campea Show is no longer live.
yeah.
We pre-record this now, and it has the number of advantages that come along with being pre-recorded. Listen, I always said, even while when we used to do the John Campea Show live, we said there's a reason 99% of channels don't do their main shows as live shows.
Yeah.
especially with the production level that we do here. There's a lot of points of error that can happen, right? So we do the show pre-recorded. So if there are any issues, not that they happen a lot, but when any issues come, whether that's human error or a technical problem or we forgot something, we can just stop, take a minute, restart again, edit it, upload it. So that's one of the great advantages here. But you know what? But that being said, I have noticed we have had drastically fewer tech issues in the last number of months. Than
remember we finally got through their texts would come out and finally Spectrum was like, okay, we have crews on the street coming at like at midnight on a certain, and they found in the loop there was a fray in our wiring that went to this whole
building,
the whole thing. And then when they finally fixed that, we stopped getting those like breakdowns at 10 a.m. on the dot every day.
That was always really
so
super frustrating.
Fairly solid. Unless there's a general outage, it's fairly solid.
All right, what's next?
From Wesley Cunningham, can you see the nuance in Barbenheimer post being in good fun? Can see the nuance in Barbenheimer post being in good fun, but people in Japan being more sensitive to it. In a similar situation involving a movie about 9/11, there would likely be a lot of people who would understandably get turned off, even in decades to come.
Listen, I remember when the 9/11 movies finally started coming out, whether it was, what was the Paul Greengrass one? Flight
97?
93, 97, something like that.
Flight 93.
A Flight 93.
United Flight 93.
And United 93, that's what it was called.
Yeah.
And then Oliver Stone made his Two Towers building with Nicolas Cage. And there are a couple. When those did finally start coming out, there was some people may not remember, there was a lot of pushback about we shouldn't be making movies about this. This is like very sensitive and blah, blah. And look, I still don't 100%. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about this because there's a part of me that completely understands that, hey, that was a sensitive issue. In Canada, they made a movie about the one Canadian serial killer. It was Paul Bernardo and Carlo Homolka were their names. And this happened when I was in school, like when I was a kid. And this couple would lure in girls and then murder the girls. And they did it to like 3 or 4 of them. I can't remember the exact number. And at any rate, eventually, 15 years later, they made a movie about it. And a lot of people in Canada were upset, saying this is a very sensitive thing about stuff that happens here and blah, blah, blah. But to me, as a species, we are storytellers. And it's important for us to tell stories. And I don't think there are any more important stories to tell than the real ones. The true ones. And so I remember I actually sat down and talked with Oliver Stone. He was my first filmmaker I ever interviewed.
Oh, that's a good get.
They invited me to go and sit down with Oliver Stone for this 9/11 movie he was doing. And, just talking to him and learning about all that. And his whole attitude was like we need to humanize these things. We need to actually put faces to it, even if it's actors' faces. We need to put faces to these issues for people. We need to tell these stories because it's a part of our world and what we do. And I can completely understand that. So I understand people getting upset. I understand people getting upset when the 9/11 thing came out. But I still feel like these are stories we need to tell.
And a part of it is we can't bury history, whether it's good or bad.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how can we learn from our mistakes if we ignore what's happened in the past? I mean, to put it in a movie, I understand the families who had to deal with the tragedies that whatever we put on screen. But there's a generation that's out that have no idea and may need a movie to know what happened like back then. That no one's going to see the news that we saw when 9/11 happened.
Well, there's people.
That was the worst day ever. Like I remember driving to my community college, and it was completely silent. You know what I mean? So it was like it's one of those things that's hard to think about, but people need to know about in some form or other.
There are 20-year-olds that weren't even born yet.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't believe in praising like things that were bad, or whatever, but we do need to know about these things.
See, I think there's a difference between telling a story, something that happened, and glorifying it.
Exactly.
I think here's a great example. I know this is going to be sensitive for you too, but I remember when Ann and I went in and watched, what was the Pixar animated film with Chris Pratt and Tom Holland?
Onward.
Onward. One of the main things in it is these kids dealing Chris Pratt and Tom Holland dealing with the death of their dad.
Right.
And it wasn't terribly long after your dad had passed.
Right.
And, we're watching that movie and they're talking about the death of dad, and Anne got very emotional watching
Were they brothers in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're brothers.
Oh, they look so different in the posters.
They're big brother and little brother.
Okay.
And Anne got very emotional watching it
Understandable.
and moved and crying and stuff like that. But do we say we shouldn't make movies where a parent dies because there are people who have lost parents?
Yeah. That's
Should
like
we,
Big
should we
Fish.
should we make movies that should we not make movies that involve car crashes because so many people have lost loved ones in car crashes? Should we not make movies that have a plane crash because so many people have lost loved ones in plane crashes? I mean, I think there's a line where we can be sensitive to that and understand that, but still understand we need to tell stories. We need to tell. So
Well, and for so many people, it's cathartic then, where that's
Yeah.
exactly how I feel, and I've never been able to articulate that.
Right.
The movie Belle. I know someone who I gave them, a warning beforehand because they were a victim of abuse as a kid, and they watched that movie, and it was, oh my gosh, this is so powerful, and I wish somebody had done this for me. And they had this really lovely, like, emotional release. And other people, I'm sure, because I saw that kind of discourse on Twitter, were like, this is terrible, and it never should have been made.
It depends where you are with
Yeah.
your healing.
Exactly.
yeah. All right, let's have time for a couple more. What's next?
From Woodcut Art, since you're doing memes today, there's a couple of memes on why we never thought Rhodey was a Skrull. Don Cheadle is the Skrull. Terrence Howard is the real Rhodey.
I'm not.
No, but that wouldn't make sense because they mimic the person there. They don't look different.
Yeah.
I know.
yeah.
That's funny.
That the ending of Secret Invasion has had a lot of discussion online about, okay, so when exactly did Rhodey become a Skrull? Well, Rhodey didn't become a Skrull, but when did Rhodey get
swapped
replaced
out.
with a Skrull?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who think it happened at the end of Civil War.
Yep.
Because Rhodey was in a hospital gown, right? Here's the problem with that theory. When Rhodey went into the hospital, he was paralyzed. He was still able to walk coming out in Secret Invasion. So if they had just swapped him out at that point, he wouldn't have been able to walk at all. I mean, he had atrophy in his legs, so he needed help walking, but you saw he was still using his own legs.
Well, that's a good point.
So
Either they blundered that or that was even earlier.
Yeah, or it's, or literally, one of the things I said on the show once was they literally could have gotten him 2 months ago when he went in for a doctor's checkup. I mean, and he was in a gown. Like, I don't know, but a lot of interesting things there. All right, what's next?
From CJ Rebirth. For Ghostbusters Afterlife, I loved the way they paid tribute to Harold Ramis' character Egon.
Yeah.
So now I'm wondering if you think they could have done something like that for Chadwick in Wakanda Forever regarding showing his character, or are they just completely different scenarios?
They're completely different scenarios. Like, for example, in Ghostbusters, that's a part of their reality, right? That's the ghosts showing up and doing things. That's part of the Ghostbusters universe. That happens. It's there. And it's something that was celebrating a 30-year-old franchise now done today and acknowledging, hey, there's one person missing, right? So that made sense. I think that probably would have felt a little forced and unnecessary in that, because that's not the way that's supposed. Like, for example, if they did a CGI Chadwick Boseman in the, what do they call the afterlife plane there again?
Oh,
There's
man.
a specific
It's
term for it they
plane,
have.
right?
What's that?
It's something plain,
The
isn't it?
ancestral plane?
The ancestral
Ancestral
plane.
plane,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Wow.
Now, if Shuri had gone to the ancestral plane and saw a CGI ghost figure of Chadwick, okay, in that universe, that would have made sense. It wouldn't have made sense for him to just pop up in the real world. I know I've said this a million times. I love the job that Ryan Coogler did, but I still think the groundwork decision to not just recast the role of T'Challa, I think that was a mistake. I think the movie suffered for it. I think he did a great job given the circumstances. Much better than 99% of other directors would have done. But I think he would have had a much better and easier time making a better quality movie had they just made the decision to, we need to recast T'Challa. He's too important of a character. We've got to honor the memory of Chadwick Boseman for what he did to bring this character into the pop cultural zeitgeist. And now we've got to carry that work on. I think that would have been the better decision. They didn't do that. It is what it is. And by the way, and I never get mad at that, the decision they made, because I know they did it out of love. They did it out of love in their hearts. I think it would have been the more loving thing, the more respectful thing to carry on Chadwick's work, but I know their motivation was love and respect, and so I'll never be upset about it, but I do think it was a mistake. All right, what's next?
From a man, happy birthday, Ray, my fellow designer, artist, and graphics guy. Hope you have an awesome day, brother.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Question for everyone. What's your all-time favorite movie poster design? Ooh.
For me, it is, why am I freezing on the name of the artist? I talk about this guy all the time, and I'm suddenly,
Logic?
what's that?
Boss Logic?
No, the actual movie poster artist. The guy who did my favorite movie posters of all time, even though I have some deep resentment towards the Star Wars special editions, the posters of the Star Wars special editions are my favorite posters.
Really? I like the original ones better, but I know the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, let me see if I can, Star Wars. What about you guys?
Go ahead. I really love the Lawrence of Arabia poster, personally.
The Lawrence of Arabia poster is great.
Yeah.
I like the Rocky one where he's just holding his hands up
Oh, yeah.
over Philly.
I like posters, like, and I think we've even heard Rob say this in the past, where like the poster tells a story. It's not a pyramid of, it's not a human pyramid of like the stars that's in the movie.
Yeah.
And the villain.
Here's an example of the poster I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is the series of poster that I'm talking about here.
Let's see.
It's, nope, is it not working anymore?
Yeah, it just has to resync it.
There we go. These are the ones that I'm talking about. So there's one for this, Empire. This, I thought these were great. Other than this, my all-time favorite poster is Shawshank Redemption of just the big close-up of Andy in the rain on his knees with his arms raised up in the air with the rain falling. That to me is like one of the most powerful, incredible, capture the spirit of a movie in one frame posters I think I've ever seen. I've always loved that one.
These are two very different ones. Vertigo.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
that's
Ooh, yeah.
amazing. Step Brothers.
No.
That
Oh, the
poster.
one where
The
they're
family
like,
portrait
just the-
picture.
yeah, the family picture.
Yes.
He's like on his shoulder.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. One of my all-time favorite comedies. All right, time for one more question. What's
All
last?
right, here we go.
All
let me go
right.
down.
From
Sorry.
Dr. Stinky or from
Akshaw.
Thank you.
Akshay.
recently rewatched Peacemaker season 1. This truly is a special show.
Yeah.
What would be your favorite scene or moment from the show? The prison scene with Vigilante never gets old.
Yeah, the prison scene with Vigilante was really good. God, I honestly don't know. I mean, it's been a while since it's been now, a year, 2 years since I've watched the show. There were so many parts of it that just made me laugh my guts out. I honestly don't know, but I'll tell you what, the very, very ending with Aquaman saying to Flash, "Fuck you, Barry." That's
So good.
That's just kind of put a bow on the show. That was such a perfect way to end this year.
And
Ray,
then
have you ever
audiences
watched
were like,
Peacemaker?
yeah, agreed.
I watched the first 3 episodes and I just never finished it. It was when I was at your place and you guys went somewhere. I don't know. I had to watch the dogs for like 3 hours. I got through 3 episodes. You actually walked in when I was finishing one of the episodes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. When we used to work at your place. That's what happened.
Oh,
okay.
I was waiting for you to finish whatever you're doing in the studio, and I was out there and I was trying to finish Peacemaker. I only made it up to episode 3, so that's it. I'll finish it.
Sorry, I just had a thought of the newest episode of What We Do in the Shadows, but I'll tell you guys off camera. All right, guys, and that'll do it.
So you weren't listening to me at all.
No. What you were saying
He
reminded
was
me of
going
that.
off into like,
What you were saying is what reminded me of it, and I'll tell you about that in a second. That'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here, making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all of our channel members for being channel members and for sending in your topics and questions. Don't forget, guys, if you happen to be taking in this show on our YouTube channel, best way to take in the John Campea Show podcast is in podcast format. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice and subscribe to the John Campea Show podcast today. So the next time that you're, out jogging at the gym, maybe you're commuting on the bus, on the train, whatever, the audio podcast will be there when you need it. So for everybody in the room, Ray Ora, the birthday
everyone.
boy,
Yeah.
Jonathan Boyko,
see you guys.
Chris Carr,
Happy birthday, Ray!
my name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.